I'm still waking up from surgery when a nurse comes in to check on me. Good news. It looks like your new heart is performing well. Heart? I thought you guys were looking at my liver? The nurse and I stared at each other, both equally confused. The nurse then flipped through the papers on his clipboard. Well, he was taking too long, and this supposedly brand new heart felt like it was beating fast enough to burst from my chest. I asked, "Were you in the operating room? Did something happen?" The nurse shakes his head as he continues reading. "No, sir. I'm still new, so I stick to mostly recovery support. Well, I can't find the doc's reason, but it does say you received a new heart." I start to feel like I'm going to pass out. I'm a generally healthy guy. I eat well and work out when I can, but due to a family history of liver problems, I went to get a checkup one day and was told I'd need surgery to test a small lump they found. No one said anything about any other organs in danger. I look back at the nurse, hoping for some support, but instead find his face as white as a sheet, staring at the clipboard. In an almost whisper, I ask, "There's more, isn't there?" The nurse clears his throat. "I think you should talk this through with your doctor." "No, wait. Look, I'm already panicking, and you leaving without explaining anything is going to drive me insane. Please, just rip the band-aid off. I can take it." The nurse looks at me for what feels like years, but he finally takes a deep breath. "Okay, there is a lot wrong with your charts, man. I didn't understand most of the medical terminology, but I was getting the gist that I should have been dead. Practically every organ in my body was struggling to function correctly. The last of the surgeon's notes was basically a grocery list of what body parts I would need to have replaced next. The room was spinning around me as the nurse talked, and I was glad that I hadn't eaten anything before going under for surgery. If I had, everything I'd eaten would have been on my lap, but I didn't see my life flash before my eyes like I always expected a moment like this would do to me. Instead, I imagined faces. I imagined my mom, dad, our family dog Pickle, and then some of my closest friends growing up. I then imagined the face of the newbie at my job who I had developed a crush on, Tanisha. A new thought sucker punched me back into reality. Was I never going to get the chance to ask her out like I planned? I had to know. "Nurse, what are my chances with all this? If everything is that bad, then..." Part of me is still holding on to the hope that he'll tell me everything will be okay and hand me a lollipop like they do for kids who get shots. But the nurse comes over and places his hand on my shoulder before saying, "I can't guarantee how much time you have left, but you're in good hands." I let this sink in. My head is starting to hurt, so I lie back down and squeeze my hands into my forehead. The nurse speaks up. "Let me get your doctor. He'll be able to explain things in more detail. Hold on for just a minute." While lying there alone, I suddenly feel the courage to reach for my phone. I pull up the workgroup chat and find Tanisha's number. I text her, "Hey, wanted to know if you wanted to catch a movie this Friday?" By the time the nurse and doctor arrive, I've already drafted my will. I watched the doctor, a man who looked at least 100 years old, take one step into my room before turning to the nurse. "Who the hell is this? Your morning heart patient." "What? Does that boy look like a Dorothy to you?" The nurse and I stared at each other, confused, for the second time that day. Before the old doctor could say anything else, another nurse came bursting in the room. "Doctor, your heart patient from this morning is having complications." The old doctor followed the second nurse out of the room. The first nurse and I were in stunned silence. Finally, I reached up and pulled down the collar of my hospital gown, exposing my chest. Nothing. Where there should have been a scar if I did have a heart transplant, there was nothing. "Are you shitting me?" I looked back up for an explanation, but the first nurse had already sprinted out of the room. I'm still sitting in the hospital bed in shock when my phone buzzes. I look down at Tanisha's response. "I'd love to see a movie. Can my boyfriend come?" In good hands, my ass.